Hello everyone, Jarek Defiler here to say, kids, shut this off. This one's for the parents. That's right, today we're talking about my top 5 favorite porn games. Woo! Funnily enough, this is perhaps my most researched video. Now, I'm an adult, and that means I like adult things, the occasional pornographic venture being among them. In moderation anyways, gotta keep it healthy. But at the end of the day, I am but a man. Anywho, for those not familiar with my channel, its theme is mainly patient gaming. So I tend to cover games that are a year or more old, which means I don't really talk about a lot of big AAA studio titles. In fact, over the last few years, my taste in gaming have almost solely been around indie studios. This eventually resulted in my stumbling across adult games, as there just isn't really AAA porn games out there, that I know of anyways, could be wrong. Now, upon playing my very first porn game, I wasn't that impressed. I even quit for a bit because the market was just not that great at the time. The vast majority of porn games were simply porn for porn's sake, rather than a game with adult and pornographic elements tied into it. And given the budget and talent, the porn wasn't even that great. But then came crowdfunding. Kickstarter, GoFundMe, etc. These offered up new opportunities for people to actually build games full time and hire the proper talent. But they still weren't optimal given that sometimes, a lot of times, goals wouldn't be reached and budgets would be mismanaged and whatnot. And there was always the chance that the developer would just take the money and run. Enter subscriber-based funding, most notably Patreon and Subscribestar. With the implementation of a monthly support payment model, developers were now able to have a solid income that allowed them to work on their games full-time indefinitely, so long as they delivered. This funding model also forces the developers to come out with quality content because they are continuously competing on the open market rather than just getting one large injection of cash with little to no oversight or guarantee of a quality product. You just get what you get. Nope, with monthly payments they have to earn your subscription on a monthly basis, which means better quality games or they go broke. Works for me! So now we have some very good developers, often only one or two people, that are able to gain a constant income that allows them to keep pumping out good stuff. And a good developer will always keep their subscribers or patrons up to date with transparent developer blogs, milestones, and communication. And as a result, they get community feedback that further enhances the development of the game. And this is what we see today in regard to adult games. Sure, there are a whole bunch of trash ones, but there are also a ton of really good ones, and I wish to share some of them with all of you here. Now keep in mind that I am a straight male, so all these titles will be catering to my sexual preferences. Okay, for starters, let me explain the criteria in which I judge said porn games. First and foremost, is it actually a game? Are there actual decent gameplay mechanics? Many porn games claim to be such, but in actuality they are simply just visual novels or interactive comics. Nothing wrong with that, but don't claim to be a game when you're just art. So how would I define a game in this context? Personally, I agree with what the late great John Bain, aka Total Biscuit, said. Basically, games are an interactive medium that must have some sort of failure state. This makes the most sense to me. Now, a failure state doesn't mean you simply lose the game entirely and have to reload, but rather it could be something simple like failing to progress because you haven't solved a puzzle, or failing to achieve a certain outcome in the storyline that you wished because you took a wrong path or made a wrong choice. Maybe you killed off a character accidentally or lost a possible narrative route. Those are all some form of a failure state. So in regard to the adult games I will be discussing here, they are games with some form of actual gameplay and failure states. Second in my criteria, FAP factor. Is the game worthy of a porn title? Does it get you hot and bothered? Is it sexy? I'm fairly picky when it comes to my adult entertainment consumption, so when playing a porn game I expect quality art, animations, textures, dialogue, and whatever else that contributes to getting my blood pumping. Personally, I don't mind if the art is cartoony, 3D, realistic, or even just text-based, so long as it's good quality. This factor will have much more weight than the others in my criteria when judging this list because it is what makes a porn game after all. Thirdly, integration. Are the adult and porn elements cohesively integrated into the gameplay? Anyone can make a game, slap some naughty pictures on it, and call it a porn game, but it takes skill, talent, and hard work to properly blend the adult elements with gameplay in order to produce a proper quality porn game. A lot of adult games will just throw the porn on top without second thought and attempt to get exposure, but the true artists of a developer will know how to implement the pornographic elements in a way that makes sense in the game's world, narrative, and game mechanics. This is not an easy balance to achieve, but those on my list did it rather well. Some extremely well. Okay, that said, let's finally get to the list, starting with number 5, The Last Sovereign. Developed by one Sierra Lee, who has quite a decent amount of game titles under her belt, The Last Sovereign is without a doubt one of the best RPGs I have ever had the pleasure to experience. I was so lucky to discover it on a post in the Gaming Suggestions subreddit a while back. Developed with RPG Maker, The Last Sovereign is done in old school JRPG style with turn-based combat and the possibility to lose the game, having to reload. Think Final Fantasy and Fire Emblem. Upon first glance, you might think it's not that impressive, but boy would you be wrong. The Last Sovereign is one of the most complex RPG titles I have ever played, porn or no. You build economies, negotiate diplomacy between nations, broker peace and truces between warring religious and cultural factions, all while creating your own harem of warriors. But don't let that word harem fool you. I know lots of porn games use that as a clutch to allow the player to bang as many people as possible, but not in The Last Sovereign. Allow me to explain. The Last Sovereign has some of the best writing in a video game ever. The world building and lore are so integral to the story and gameplay that you find yourself just completely immersed in this deep, deep universe. In regard to my criteria, The Last Sovereign reigns supreme when it comes to integration. Sex isn't just a thing the developer threw in to spice it up a bit. Oh no. In The Last Sovereign, sex is virtually a culture of entire races and factions. For example, you have the race of succubi, who have their own societies, culture, cities, and communities, and it's all built upon sex and lust. You might think, so what? Well, my pervertido friend, sex and lust is basically a succubus's life's essence. Just like men in real life, if they don't get it regularly, they become these shriveled up, lust-seeking zombies and eventually die from sex starvation. It's not just a throwaway attribute, it's a necessity. And that is just one of multiple aspects of how Sierra Lee integrated sex and lust into the game's narrative. You actually use lust as a form of combat for your succubus warriors. It's a power that you can wield and develop as a weapon or shield. Getting nookie in the game isn't just a for fun thing. It's a way to replenish your power while also forging stronger relationships with your harem warriors, and most importantly, pushing the story along in intricate ways. Choosing to have sex with one character while dismissing another may have serious positive or negative consequences later on down the road. And speaking of relationships, there are a ton. Not only will you get a plethora of ladies to join your harem, all with their own unique personalities and styles, but each and every one will have a relationship meter that you can improve depending on the choices you make as the game progresses. And choices seriously matter in The Last Sovereign. For instance, I went on my current playthrough without a character in my harem because I didn't even know I could get her at the start of the game. This changed the dynamic of many battles, choices, and outcomes later on due to not having her in my party. And these results manifested some 50 plus hours into the game. Now, I love relationship building in games, be it with an individual, a group, or an entire faction or country. And this game has that in spades. You build relationships with all kinds of people, religions, cultures, factions, countries, gangs, guilds, and whatever. But, like our beloved Morrowind, you can't simply join and become besties with every single faction in the game. You have to pick and choose which we will join because it often leads to a fallout or consequences with other factions. And there's just so many variables and factors involved in this regard that I wouldn't even be able to scratch the surface if I made this video 8 hours. The Last Sovereign story is so complex with choices that really truly matter that the replayability is through the roof. And it's a long game. I'm clocked at 149 hours so far and I still haven't beaten my single and only playthrough. Granted, some of that is me just leaving the game running while I go make dinner and whatnot, but there's still so much content that I can easily get 500-600 hours out of it maybe. Also, the music is absolutely stellar, so plus on that. So why do I have it at number 5 only? Well, although The Last Sovereign has what I think is the best story, writing, and RPG mechanics on this list, it unfortunately lacks in the porn department. You're not really going to be playing this game for its naughty bits. The fap factor is low in that regard. The art isn't anything to write home about, and there are no animations for it. That said, there is a great deal of really high quality pornographic text. All the sex scenes come with text descriptions, and Sierra Lee knows how to write. So if you take the time to actually read the scenes, they are fantastic, and that's where The Last Sovereign truly shines. It's writing. If I was simply judging these games as games alone, The Last Sovereign would be number 1 as I think it is the best game in this video. But this is a porn game list and I have to take that aspect into account. Either way, give it a go if you're in the mood for a highly complex and deep adult JRPG. It's free on Steam, and if you enjoy it, you can buy the $10 thank you DLC or even go support Sierra Lee on Patreon. She's already bringing in a whopping $5,600 a month, and every penny is well worth it given the quality of her games. On to number 4, 4 Elements Trainer by MIDI, short for May It Taint You. This might disturb some of you who are fans of Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra. I am an Avatar fan, but oddly enough it was this game and my wife that got me interested in the show. I played 4 Elements Trainer long before I ever saw so much as one episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender. It was one of those games that I stumbled upon on some porn site or something, I don't remember, and it was just free, so I thought I'd give it a shot. Before I knew it, I was hooked and tearing my way through it, not because it was super sexy and hot, but because I just liked the gameplay and the story and humor. It was a casual fun ride and I enjoyed the hell out of it. It was then that I saw my wife watching Avatar: The Last Airbender on Netflix that I told her I have a porn game based on it, and she got me watching it with her. And I then immediately became hooked on that, which was kinda creepy actually, because I discovered that all the characters are in fact kids, but in 4 Elements Trainer, Mitty states that they're all 18 plus in an alternate reality and whatnot. But I don't know. So full warning there. I get that they're just cartoons, but still, fairly unsettling. That said, 4 Elements Trainer is a fun and hilarious romp through the world of Avatar. You make your way through the 4 Element books, training with different masters, and depending on if you go the slave or love route, personally I do love routes, seducing or dominating various ladies from the Avatar universe. What makes 4 Elements Trainer unique is the attention to detail. You can tell Mitty is a huge fan of the series because there are little nods and winks at the most minute details of the show. You'll bang characters that were just a guard standing at a door in a palace in the show, or an ancillary character working as a waitress or something. You'll do side narratives that are taken from little mini plots in the show as well. But overall, 4 Elements Trainer is superb when it comes to respecting the original story and lore. Mitty keeps it close to the chest, and although you are going around just banging everything that moves, you actually have to work at it, and the relationships developed in that time are pretty meaningful, to be honest. The ladies you participate in carnal knowledge with never feel like these sex dolls that are just there for your amusement. They got character development, their own personalities, likes, dislikes, and whatnot. It makes it more engaging. Break down. Like most Renpai games, the gameplay is fairly simple and straightforward. You progress through the story, meeting people, completing tasks given to you by your trainer, getting into and out of all sorts of trouble. However, you can take different paths leading to some changes down the road, and there are some failure states, so you're not just running through willy-nilly, especially with the mini-games. Although the game is narrative-driven and you're mostly reading text, there are still some engaging mechanics that keep you interacting rather than just sitting there reading. Although it is mostly you just sitting there reading, as it is with most Renpai games, to be honest. As far as the FAP factor goes, the artwork is very well done and the characters are properly represented. The art style is based off the series, so it's very cartoony. The sex scenes are animated, albeit slightly, but they're fairly decent and I don't have many complaints there. Sometimes they'll get a little wonky in the joints, but nothing too distracting. Overall, the porn factor is pretty good, I say, and has some work put into it, and sex is treated as something that is earned rather than you just going around getting into it from everyone every which way without so much as a tic-tac-toe puzzle. If you can get past the creep factor in regard to some very young-looking 18-year-olds, then I would say Mitty did a good job integrating story with original content and adult themes. 4 Elements Trainer is worth a couple playthroughs as there is replayability with different paths you can take. Check out Mitty's Patreon for more. Moving on to number 3, What a Legend. Created by a married couple with the aptly named moniker Magic Nuts, What a Legend is a super high quality dating sim that takes a bunch of jabs at the porn game genre. They make fun of the use of gold or currency in games that require you to go to bed over and over again to build up some cash, or do all these menial tasks over and over to build strength or charisma, and they take a different, smarter approach. What a Legend finds you in a fictional fantasy realm with fairies, elves, orcs, and stuff, which I love as fantasy is my favorite theme. The writing is really great and well paced, and the story and characters are engaging and sympathetic. There isn't much in regard to failure states, but there is a great deal of interaction and puzzle solving that keeps you engaged so you don't feel like you're playing a walk-in simulator. It also has a sandbox foundation allowing you to complete different quest lines at different times instead of being stuck on a linear path, which is great. Now where What a Legend truly shines is its artwork. What a Legend has by far the best art out of all the games on this list. It's cartoony, but in a very clean-cut and detailed way. The ladies are all smoking hot as a two-dimensional cluster of pixels can be, and the detail in the environments and backgrounds are superb. If you play the game, take a moment to really look around at each section you're in to discover funny little details or jokes put in place. The attention to detail is impressive. I really love the art style of What a Legend, and it lends much to the pornographic aspect. The porn is as hot as the art with simple 2D multi-layered animations and various scenes with various ladies. But like the other titles I speak of here, you aren't simply handed all the sex scenes after a few clicks of gameplay. You have to earn them by working your way through the quests and stories. You do quests with each lady, garner a relationship, and eventually that relationship will culminate into something more. It's very rewarding and well paced and gives the characters some depth that you can become attached to rather than having them just be a masturbatory tool of some sort. The only downside of What a Legend is that it's a fairly new game and is therefore still under development. The couple of Magic Nuts have a progression graph on their Patreon that they update nearly every day, so you can check in every now and then. and their progress is steady going. Being a patient gamer, I normally don't dabble in unfinished games or early access titles, but in this case there is enough in the game to warrant a recommendation, and quite frankly this is one of the titles I am looking forward to the most, so I want to get the word out so people can support it. I got hooked on the story and art big time, so check out Magic Nuts' Patreon and give the game a try. Next, numero dos y uno. I'm going to lump these in together as they are linked and from the same developer. Coming in at number 2 is Lust Epidemic, preceding the absolute fantastic Treasure of Nadia, which sits at number 1 for me. There is a developer, just one guy, or girl, not entirely sure, who goes by the name of NLT. Their Patreon page has a whopping 14,000 patrons, and for very good reason. NLT is the epitome of what a porn game developer should be. They work every day, put out constant updates, and most importantly, they take their craft seriously and work hard to make it as perfect as possible by learning from their previous titles and mistakes and implementing improvements. They created 2 of what I think are the best porn games ever made, the aforementioned Lust Epidemic and Treasure of Nadia, and they are now in the process of creating the next in the series, the Genesis Order, and boy I can't wait for it to finish. But back to the 2 on this list. Lust Epidemic and Treasure of Nadia are both story-driven adventure games that have you, the protagonist, make your way through a set location, meeting women, solving puzzles, and generally getting wrapped up in some gnarly supernatural conundrum. And it's a blast. Lust Epidemic and Treasure of Nadia have virtually everything you'd want in a porn game. Interesting story? Check. Unique and likable characters? Check. Decent game mechanics having a good dose of interactivity? Check. Absolutely stunning porn art and animations? Check, check, check. Lust Epidemic is the first in this particular series and finds you stranded at a university during a big storm with a few sensual ladies. As the story progresses, you have to do some clue finding, mystery and puzzle solving, as well as forging some rather intimate relationships with the ladies you're trapped in the university with. I discovered Lust Epidemic while perusing the adult game sections on F95 Zone, and boy what a find. I have to be honest, I wasn't that captivated by the characters upon first glance. I'm not a big fan of gigantic breasts and butts. I'm more of a medium to small breast guy myself, and, medium-sized butt. And the ladies in Lust Epidemic are very much on the thicker side. So I wasn't all that interested at the start. However, after reading other people's comments on how great the game is, I decided to give it a go. And within a few minutes I was hooked. The story was super engaging and the gameplay mechanics were the first I tried in a porn game that wasn't just silly stuff like click bed to sleep, click store to buy food, click gym to gain strength, etc. In Lust Epidemic, your character actually moved. And I know how silly that sounds now, but back then that was a fairly rare thing in the adult gaming world of visual novels and Renpai games. So what kept me coming back to play more was the actual game and story itself. The sex scenes were just icing on the cake. And boy, is that some good icing. No hydrogenated oils or high fructose corn syrup here. Pure organic raw sugar and grass-fed butter and whole milk. Delicioso. NLT really strives for perfection when it comes to doing animations. NLT actually said that animating is their favorite part of the development process in an interview they did with lewdpixels.com, which would explain a lot because the animations in Lust Epidemic are numerous, creative, and super high quality. This is extremely impressive upon finding out that only one person did them, as well as the entirety of the rest of the game. Lust Epidemic is a perfect balance of great story, interactive gameplay, and superb porn scenes that integrate sex into the game in a logical, albeit supernatural way. But there are some flaws here and there. Sometimes you'll find yourself having to resort to walkthroughs to get past certain stages, and quite frankly the faces of the ladies are a bit wonky at times. They have this grimace on a lot of the time that gives them that Saint Bernard look. Not the best for the fat meter, but the animations more than make up for it. And when they're just standing around, they're doing it in these ridiculously contorted positions to make their butts and boobs stick out more, and it's fairly laughable. My wife was watching me play and she kept cracking up at that. That doesn't really bother me that much though, because it's just the hypersexualization of characters in porn games at work. But then we have Treasure of Nadia, NLT's next game in the series. Not sure if I should call it a series or a sequel, as the games are directly related and you owe it to yourself to play Lust Epidemic first, but Treasure of Nadia can work just fine as a standalone, although you will miss out on some story elements. That said, Treasure of Nadia took everything that was wrong with Lust Epidemic and completely fixed it. Facial grimace? Gone. All the ladies in Treasure of Nadia are gorgeous. Get stuck in a certain area? This game has the in-game guide that will give you hints and point you in the right direction. I mean, Lust Epidemic did as well, but this one's a bit more intuitive. And NLT implemented several mini-games and puzzles that you can do aside from the main storyline in order to unlock new naughty scenes, as well as customize your house and make it look nice so you can have classier ladies come over for a booty call. It's awesome. Treasure of Nadia's story is just as great, if not greater, than Lust Epidemic's, and it introduces a way bigger cast of ladies you can become intimate with. This isn't your typical harem, though. Like I said before, these games make you earn the privilege of bedding these lovely, luscious ladies, and that makes it all the more fun. There is a lot of story and character development across the board, not just in the protagonist, but all the NPCs as well. And there is also a much greater variety in body types this time around. Unlike Lust Epidemic, the ladies of Treasure of Nadia aren't all these ultra thick, giant boobed thigh crushers. Nope, in Treasure of Nadia you still have the thick ladies, but you also have petite ones with small or medium breasts, tall ones, shorter ones, slim ones, more natural looks. It has something for all tastes this time around, and I'm grateful for that. Ooh, and they have another nun in it like in Lust Epidemic, which is something I dig. I don't know why. Anyways, like in Lust Epidemic, the porn aspect is very well integrated into Treasure of Nadia, and wasn't just thrown in there. All the scenes, although still silly and over the top sometimes, make sense in the context of the story. I don't want to spoil any of it, but there is a very logical reason that these people are uncontrollably lusting and fornicating with each other. NLT is very good at tying it all together without plot holes. Labor of love for sure. Now, lastly, the animations in Treasure of Nadia are a huge step up from Lust Epidemic. They are much more fluid, smooth, varied, and have a bit more voice acting, albeit just a small amount like moans and stuff, which, quite frankly, is a good thing in my opinion. I prefer animations with no actual dialogue. Instead, I find just breathing and moans to be way more enticing and less distracting. But to this day, I have yet to see better porn animations in a complete finished video game. Wildlife may have the best animations I've ever seen overall in a game, but it's an unfinished one and still has a way to go. But get this, in that same interview with Lewd Pixels, NLT says that the animations in the Genesis order are even better. How is that possible? I don't even know. But I can't wait to see. Needless to say, the fat meter is off the charts with both Lust Epidemic and Treasure of Nadia, with Treasure of Nadia taking the gold. NLT's hard work, love for the craft, and absolute dedication to the story and animations make them the best porn game developer on the planet in my opinion. But who knows, maybe there's better ones out there. I haven't played every single adult game in existence after all. Well, that just about covers it for this list. I recommend, if you are of the appropriate age, to give these titles a try if that's your thing. Remember that adult games aren't just simple porn anymore. There's a strong shift into making porn games actual games, and these 5 titles are great examples of that transition. So thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share with your favorite adults. Dislike button is right there as well if you didn't enjoy the video. This has been Jarek Defiler, the Degenerate. You all take it easy and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, or night depending on where you are. Fap on.